So what I'm going to focus on is ascertaining a trustee's duty to account and report, compelling an account and report of a trustee, and responding to a petition to compel an account and report, and then finally a beneficiary's objections to an account and report. I did want you to know as practitioners the amount of checklists that are available in this Matthew Bender practice guide, because I think that's the goal of this guide, is to be a practical tool. So let's get started with compelling an account. So if you are looking at representing a trustee or a beneficiary in an accounting proceeding, what's the very first thing that you should do? Does anybody have any thought on that? Some of our experienced trust and estates litigators. What would be one of the very first things that you would do if a beneficiary comes to you with saying, I can't get any information, or a trustee comes to you and says these beneficiaries are driving me crazy? What's the first step? And most often the overlooked step. Send a letter? Okay, and that's a good step, and we'll get to that. That's one of the requirements. But the very yeah, the hook's going to come out. So the very first thing you should do is read the trust. I'm surprised. We'll talk about how to get that later. But read the trust. I'm so surprised how many people don't take the time to read the trust.
Dawn, I'm just going to interrupt for a minute. I would echo Dawn's comment, and I would say you should especially read the trust if you wrote it.
That's right. You may not remember what you did. Outline the trust. Read every word of the trust. Don't just skim the headings. I'm surprised what I find under various headings. It has nothing to do with the heading. Recently I had a trust that had a requirement that a trustee account every 6 months, and it was in the trustee's powers section. It wasn't in the accounting section of the trust. So read the trust. Be intimately familiar with the trust. You don't want to be in the embarrassing position of filing objections because the trustee didn't comply with the Uniform Principal and Income Act when there's a provision excusing compliance in the trust. So it's very important. Sit down, take the time, and read the trust. And when I represent a beneficiary, I will always send a letter to the attorney for the trustee before I do anything. My first letter is, I have a copy of instrument named X, dated Y, signed by A and B, and then I list everything I have, the dates, and who signed it, and I ask them to confirm in writing that these documents constitute all the documents of the trust and that there have been no revocations or changes, so that we know the parameters of the universe that we're dealing in, because the trust is really, it sets the boundaries and it sets the playing field, and you want to know that what you have is correct. And oftentimes I'll get a response back and say, well, actually there was an additional amendment to the survivor's trust that you don't have, or this was revoked, or these documents were entirely superseded by another completely different plan, and so you need to know the universe that you're working in.